Like a short butcher with tall shells. It's going to be interesting. Bellows are going to roll straight out of the Doomfist. This is a pick he has been known for at times, but hasn't always had the most success on in the last couple of seasons.
And no Widowmaker for Xavier. You'll notice, okay, Widowmaker Pharah has been really coming into the meta, again, ever since that Stage 3 victory by Shanghai Dragons. A lot more teams have taken this comp up, but so far you'd have to say Bellow might have a hard time if you can't land on the right targets, and there's a lot of slippery ones out there.
Queen also takes a ton of pressure here. Lone Phils finds out 50. That's a nice sort of 1-2 punch combo between him and THK, but unfortunately, Bellow going down. It's a good hack, but can they finish it? Yes, they can. THK again working alongside with Lone Phils, but Ten is looking to keep the team on its back right now, and it talks about the pressure on Queen. It does start to mount. He eats so many more rockets, so much more spam damage from the Han zones. This is the cap. Green leaves, but Xavier are winning this fight now.
And Xavier should be looking to counter cap pretty soon. 15 out coming back on the Sombra. You notice that Green leaves want to abandon this Widowmaker pretty soon. They're pretty late on the Sombra though, because you know they just had the changeover. 50's already down. Lone Phils will have this EMP fairly shortly, and I guess the only problem now is Bellow might be looking to change himself, probably onto something like a Brigada or a hit scan, like a Tracer.
There you go, and that is going to be matching 10's Tracer as well, so we are almost in mirrored composition, still that slight difference in the main tank. Scenario sticking with the Orisa for now, eating a hack as he does so. A nice wraparound from Bellow to finish Scenario off. That is a huge blow to be dealt. 5% away from a supercharger as well at that point in time. Gets the res out of Xerapi, but it's very hard for Scenario to contest this point all alone. Eventually he'll start to take a lot of pressure, especially with that EMP laid down very nicely from Lone Phils. DPSs of Xavier having no trouble cleaning up the kills off the back of that.
And that was a really tricky timing for Xavier to reach as well, because they were just slightly off the map for Bellow in this case, but slightly off, I was going to say, the EMP timing, because you have THK just going down, you want to play the EMP, but you want one of your main damage dealers to be in there, so you have to get the res, which is maybe potentially quite risky depending on where you die. Xavier then play the EMP, and he has to then just res in time to be able to put in a little bit more. Bellow's obviously there with a bit of damage of his own. Both Tracers go off the map equally, so you call that one a 1-to-1. And so far, Xavier off the back of the EMP are going to be out of here.
Scenario's also made a swap onto Winston, so they're just a little bit behind in the tank department here in terms of ultimate charge. But hack on Queen means he can't exactly Primal Rage himself, and that ends up being a 1-to-1 for THK. Yoshimi then his own Rocket Barrage to pick one up, and the trade starts to come in big time. Rez is yet to be committed by Tay. Primal Rage is also yet to be committed by Queen. And now Tay goes down, Thittercorn as well. This could be Greenleaves, indeed will be Greenleaves finding their entry onto the point. Very late Primal Rage from Queen. Unfortunately just going to die while that's running.
And honestly, Bellow's been doing a pretty decent job. He had that stick onto Scenario as well, which secured that kill. But Greenleaves had that extra res, whereas Tay already used one previously to get THK back in the previous fight, so was still on cooldown. Xavier doesn't quite have the capability to keep the numbers up. 92% is a decent lead, but Greenleaves now, decent amount of catch-up required for them. 62% is what they need to be able to even equalize. They have the EMP to sort of swing future fights their way as well. Off the back of that, they need to snowball further.
Tay also just swapped over to Lucio and then back on to this Mercy. Gives up the ultimate charge. Also early death here, so not exactly going to be charging it back up in any kind of hurry. And this is good play by Greenleaves to find some opportunities to maybe close this gap in terms of percentage on the point.
And I will be honest, because you're playing for a longer game here as Greenleaves, and you do have to set up quite a bit for future fights, playing the EMP in that particular scenario seemed a little bit over-committed, because you already had a decent lead in terms of members. You had basically what ended up being a two-man EMP that got THK and Queen. Bellow goes down slightly afterwards, but the rest of Xavier get out alive, so you don't charge enough other ultimates to then be able to snowball you further.
So Nano Boost in onto 10, who's trying to use it to run down Queen. They don't quite find him, he may just slip out, but they found a couple more picks, and now we're approaching the 80% mark, so they've mostly evened up this gap now.
And so they're going to end up being 5 kills, which is off the back of a single Nano Boost is actually what you do want to see. So they've kind of evened things up now. You have an EMP that's probably didn't need to be used, but then a Nano Boost which gets you not just itself 5 kills, but what eventuates into that. Now they've completely caught up in terms of objective percentage. Xavier have a decent amount of work to do, however, EMP being available should be netting them something big.
Tay has actually had to make the swap over onto the Lucio, partially for mobility's sake. That's a 1-for-1 so far. Hashimi's a big pickup, but there's a res on Greenleaves where there is none on Xavier, so they have to do double whatever Greenleaves do in terms of kills. They can't just trade evenly, and you already see that numbers still favoring Greenleaves. Also, just more ultimates in the pocket. 10 still running members over and has yet to commit this pulse bomb as well. Xavier did actually sneak a cap over partway through that, but it's looking like that's going to be a short-lived situation with Hashimi finally picking up 2 with the rocket barrage, and that should be the last bastion of defense here on the point for Xavier.
I'm going to be honest, that second to last fight where that 1 nano boost onto 10 and the rest of Greenleaves clean up 5 members, that was a little bit too costly for Xavier, where at the time as well, you're getting too close to that 90% mark if you are Greenleaves, and Xavier needed that fight for recovery. The fact that they come in fairly late because few staggered kills, including Tay, who was on the Mercy, comes back on Lucio, like you mentioned. They have the EMP. It's a solo EMP that only goes on 10, whether that was intended for more or not, and Xavier couldn't quite capitalize. They were under too much time pressure, couldn't find the right play for that EMP to be useful. And Xavier, unfortunately, losing a couple too many fights in a row, especially that second to last one again. That one was not enough from their side and not enough ultimates forced on the Greenleaf side either.
Now rolling out once again. This time Xavier are going to opt into a Widowmaker, so no Pharah. Also means no Mercy for Tay. Greenleaf's going to stick mostly to what they were running on the last map by the end of it, only change being Sonaro over to Wrecking Ball.
And I think we'll see Bello change over pretty soon as well. This time 50 is content with just playing the counter-sniper role against THK. In fact, now that the Tracer, or rather now that the Sombra is gone, Bello may look to just stick onto this because he can have a decent amount of flanking pressure against 50.
He will need THK to do a lot of work against Hoshimi and Xerafi because that is the other big disconnect in terms of what these two teams are playing, and there they are trying to pressure out Hoshimi, but he stays alive, and 50 finds a headshot on a lone fills. Now Bello goes down as well to the pressure from 10, and Xavier just starting to crumble here.
And they've just lost a decent amount of flankers. 50 takes down his counterpart as well. That's enough kills though that will definitely get this point capped. Bello's going to change over to a Brigade. I wonder if Xavier will make any other changes. Does seem like they want to go to a regular goat. Yep, THK looking for Zarya, maybe a Diva this time instead. And a lone fill is not really anything to write home about in terms of the EMP charge. Everything just seems a little slow for Xavier on this particular round.
It's strange they got off to such a hot start on Well, but they seem to have not even been able to replicate that on Well, let alone here on Ruins. And it's already an early pickup for 10 as well, who's just going to harangue anyone from Xavier who tries to make their way to this point.
It's just been a spawn camp so far. You know, you have THK maybe sniping from spawn again, maybe find something, but Xavier just are struggling to make any rotations happen. They're being spammed from all directions. Look at the HP passes. They try and go anywhere.
It's absolutely disgusting. That's exactly what 10 wants to be doing. Goes in, gets the pulse bomb on Bello. It's an early pick in the rotation. There's just nothing Xavier can do to even approach this point. And in the meantime as well, they're struggling to charge up ultimates.
And this has been point capture that's happened pretty much during the reset phase and into the second fight phase. So this entire 50% has just been Xavier hanging out in spawn, trying to get their members out, trying to rotate onto the point, and probably will lose someone again.
Yeah, decent hack on Hashimi, but it ends up coming to nothing. Nice defense matrix. Still not enough to keep Queen alive, and there was a biotic grenade that slipped through the cracks on the other side from Cloud there. So again, Xavier really struggling with how to actually deal with Greenleaves' composition right now.
And you're going to be at about 80% plus, maybe even reaching 90% before Xavier can get any sort of fight. And this is, by the way, Alone Phil's his first EMP that he's yet to use. And he can't really use it any way useful until they can get their members into a position to capitalize on all that damage. This is where Greenleaves can afford to play slightly further back because they know Xavier want to be quite aggressive with their ultimates now. They should have ultimates, and they do, in fact.
There it is. They decide to commit the EMP onto the members that have been pushing forward, namely Xerafi, Hoshimi. 10 doesn't quite get caught in it, and it is 10 who pays it back by throwing out a pulse bomb, so it's not really much value so far for Xavier, having lost Thitacorn in the mix here, and now Greenleaves just happy to sit pretty on the point, force Xavier to come to them as the overtime begins. They've already found Queen here. It's not looking great.
This time around, can't blame a hack, can't blame the stun either. He was just alive. Xavier losing everybody.
Yeah, blame fat fingers or something, or maybe skinny fingers. It's going to be Xavier just getting absolutely rolled over. The first one was close. Well, ended up going to a 99-99, but with this nano boost onto Hoshimi, it's looking like that'll be all that's left in the tank for Xavier. 100-0 for Greenleaves to take our first map.
And I think on that second round in particular, Green Leaves just had the better compositional matchups. You can see that as Xavier made quite a late change as well. It's not like they started on a 3-3 or 3-2-1 composition with the Sombra. They started on Widowmaker, Doomfist. They started on the DPSs. All they needed to do was take Bellow off Doomfist if they're not comfortable in that. Put him on Tracer again. Put him on something else that can also be effective in a DPS position and really compete in terms of, okay, you have a Sombra, you have a Widowmaker. The only other reason you might not want to be playing that is you're not confident in the Widowmaker 1v1, in which case 50 is just doing a little bit too much that you have to do a lot of other things. And playing into a 3-2-1 versus a pharmacy where you have to go Moira, you have to go D.Va, you can't play Zarya because you need the defensive matrix, that's another big loss because you actually want the damage output.
Yeah.
Playing the D.Va there instead, still having the Sombra, which is struggling to get an EMP up in time, and then not being able to get out of spawn at all because there's too much spam, there's too much damage coming from multiple angles, and you can't find a fight at all. I think if it were, in my personal opinion, staying on a DPS comp would have been better because they were already there and that would match up better into what Green Leaves were running.
And it just feels like Xavier, not only are they struggling with how to approach these team compositions, they're also struggling to execute on team compositions that should work against them. I mean, when you're both running DPSs, often it comes more or less down to skill matchups, but then that's where the disparity is being showed so far in this match. Green Leaves are just a little bit more with it so far. Now, maybe it's a slow start for Xavier. They do look like they haven't quite got underway yet, I suppose. You know, maybe need to shake off, I can't say shake off the rust. It's not like it's been that long, but just get warmed up or something. But how many times have we said that at this point in the match? Oftentimes, that just never ends up happening for Xavier.
Who knows, might still be an early morning for them or something. But look, I mean, Japan's on a different time zone as well. Either case, we will be heading into our next map, and we'll see if Xavier can pick things up or if Green Leaves will take a 2-0 here. It's going to be played on Assault, so let's go here to find out a little bit more.
Welcome to Hanamura. This is Assault. Two teams face off as either defenders or attackers. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to capture two objectives. First A, and then B. To capture an objective, the attackers need to stand within its range for a set amount of time. Defenders can delay capture progress by also standing in range. To resume capture, the attackers must force the defenders off the objective by any means necessary. If successful, they score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. Now the fight moves to objective B. If even one attacker is on an objective when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until either team is cleared away. The round ends when the attackers capture both objectives or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points wins.
Paris will be map number 2 here, and you're starting to be in the zone where you're kind of thinking as well, if Xavier don't want to match DPS here, do they just start on the 3-3? Do they just start on GOATs, commit to that and say, this is what we're going to play today, this is what we're going to rely on? Because in any case, if you do start on a DPS, to match DPS, you realize halfway it's not working for you, then you swap, you're going to be at a deficit. So start on the right foot.
Yeah, the question comes as well, how are they going to deal with the bunker? How do they approach the bunker? And actually to that end as well, you look at Green Leaves in terms of playing the bunker composition, it's actually been one of their weaker compositions. Not like they're terrible at it, but it is certainly just a little bit below some of the other options they have at their disposal. So that could actually be a bit of a window, a bit of an opportunity for Xavier in this particular map if they can run a better bunker and they can also deal with Green Leaves' bunker adequately while running comfortable picks of their own. We should see a situation where Xavier are favored if they're executing well.
And that's the thing, we also have to look at where the meta is going, and so far, look, a lot of members of different teams, especially that we've seen in this particular region, opting for the Pharah Widow. Guess what? Paris is going to be another Pharah Widow map, at least for that first A point. So if you cannot adapt to that, if you're not going to be playing into that or playing it yourself, you're going to need to find some answers very quickly.
Get it? Spenny more, as in spend more money because you are a wealthy Omnic and can do that.
Spend your pennies.
Imagine having money to
Spennies,
spend.
or pennies.
I don't know what that's like. Isn't that why the French Revolution happened? They didn't have enough money to spend. I don't know.
Well, somebody clearly had a lot of money to spend. Maybe, yeah, looking to roll out on.
I had to spend it with.
Thinking of the McCree for a second, but this is more likely the start you want to see, which is to say, okay, we're not confident to run our own Widowmaker here. We are going to run a 3-3. It is Queen on the Rhine, though, which could be a little bit dangerous versus a Pharah. However, it will be a decent matchup coming into an Orisa. It's just about how can you rotate onto the point.
Also, Mushroom substituted back in. It was actually with Mushroom last week that they looked, honestly, really good. So I'm glad to see that. We'll have to see if it actually pays off, though, as much as it did last week.
And already, so far, everyone is live, healthy. Alone Phil's getting up there in terms of Sombra and ult charge. And they might get to the point on time here. And Green Leaves don't have a lot of spam damage. Usually at this stage, Hashimi would have a lot of charge, but what he's got a lot of is a lot of Z's.
Yeah, taking a nap, and they're able to collapse on him. They actually have to make a long rotation back around to take advantage of that, but as long as they don't lose anyone, they're really risking it here. Thetacorn and Tay both exposed for a fair chunk of time, but they survived the counter rotation.
Oh,
Therapy hacked. He can't go for the res, and that means Hashimi's respawn the normal way. There's the trade coming in, though, and suddenly Xavier have started to collapse. They've lost track of the objective.
Well, everything looked good up until now. They got a kill onto one of the important members that was really going to stop their rotation. They then stopped a res coming through by getting a hack onto Xerafi, but then everyone was called out. You had Tay going down very early. Xavier still losing members. Tenna's going off at the moment.
That's super rough. They'd done everything right. They got the kill. They got the hack on Xerafi, and they were making the rotation back to the points, and then they seemed to not quite be sure how to commit to it, and they ended up hovering in the open. They weren't clean and coordinated, and 10 takes advantage.
I also think they were maybe a little bit baited by, okay, we have a hacked Mercy here. Let's try and kill her. Why? I mean, at that point, you're really exposing yourself. They're going too deep into trying to get those extra members down when, at that point, you've stopped the res coming through. Go to the point.
Yeah.
There's no more Pharah. Xavier, they have to go for the second push now. At least EMP is available, but 50 is not that far off.
It worked on Hashimi when they got the sleep, but yeah, unfortunately it didn't work out the second time. Again, though, they make the rotation successfully on towards the point.
There will be a rocket barrage this time around. Hashimi is well and truly safe. Ooh, might not be.
But Alone Phils gets picked off by 10, who's obviously not caught by the EMP and has that exact firing line. That is where Xavier, or rather where Greenleaves want Xavier to try and take a fight, because it's the part of this point where Greenleaves have all the sidelines, they have all the playroom.
And this is, by the way, where it's difficult to get use out of EMP, because if you're Xavier, you're running a ground-based composition, you're gonna get people, okay, they get EMP'd onto the ground, but how do you run into them without people like, without someone like 10 just completely sniping you down, without losing members like this?
And with the biotic grenade as well, the few members that don't just die to the rocket barrage probably won't be lasting much longer. Thetacorn also committed a nano boost, so one of the few ultimates they had, they used. And there's still an EMP on 50, by the way. There's only one fight left, and Greenleaves are already favored for it.
And this is why you don't typically run a Goats comp into Pharah Widow on this particular map. You don't even, I mean, you run it into a ground-based bunker. Look, they would be doing better if it was a Bastion on defense, but because it's this, and it's not a Bastion, it's too mobile, it's very high in the sky, Xavier just can't do anything about it. They lose another member, and this is going to be another reset.
Yeah, it's one they've just got to sit tight and wait for. They don't really have time to make long rotations, so they've made the changes, and now the question is, will this actually work better for them? Can they execute on this where they failed to with the regular Goats?
Well, the good news is they have dive now. It's 2-2-2 effectively, and what they can do is also not all stacked together, so the pharmacy isn't going to just completely destroy them. Thetacorn is still going to have a hard time, though.
Yeah, I mean, the Pharah can still destroy them, though, with that supercharger attached if you land the shots, and Hashimi proves that he can. The EMP is devastating. Very hard for these members to get anything done. Tay will probably end up committing a sound barrier just to try buy some extra time for the few members left, but it's not enough time to get them to the point. That ends up being a full hold for Greenleaves.
We end up talking about, okay, which team shows up today? Is this going to be a match where both teams are very much awake and it's going to be a close one, or is it going to be a match where only one team is very well prepared and the other one doesn't look nearly as prepared? And we're starting to get that answer now. In fact, I would say a map and a half in.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear that Greenleaves are here to play today, and Xavier, not saying they're not here to play, but clearly they're not on the same page. Clearly they don't look like the same Xavier that just beat GE last week. There seems to be quite a few problems here, and it's going to be a potential 3-0 into a 4-0 if they can't fix things in time.
I mean, you start to look at Well on Ilios as the outlier. That was the one where Xavier actually got a big lead, nearly won it, and it ended up at 99-99. And I call that the outlier because after that, you get 100-0, and now you get a full hold on Greenleaves' defense. Now, look, sure, they haven't capped yet, but a draw isn't exactly pleasant for Xavier anyway because they would still be at a map disadvantage in the series. So, yeah, you're dead right. Greenleaves are just looking like the better team today.
Let's also be clear about something else. If you're still relying on 3-3 at this stage or any version of GOATs, even a 3-2-1, that's not something you take into playoffs. And yes, we can say Greenleaves with a triple DPS probably aren't going to take that either. In fact, they're not, but they will still be able to take a Fire. They will still be able to take a Widow. They'll drop the Sombra for a flex tank or something, but that's still effective. You can't deal with Widow Mercy, Widow Fire now. You're not going to deal with it in playoffs when it will be 2-2-2 confirmed.
Now Xavier on the defense, leaning into something of a bunker of their own, or sort of, it's not even really a bunker, it's more just the Orisa and the Batiste. Aside from that, a little bit of hodgepodge.
It's a double support bunker with some really decent flank kill potential on Alone Falls and Queen, where they're basically playing double main tank, which is pretty popular with Orisa and Winston, particularly on a defense for Paris. Would like to see how they achieve this.
Good sidelines for THK, but he is going to be taking a lot of pressure from Hoshimi. Hoshimi knows who his priority target is, and it won't just be Hoshimi. 50 and 10 will also be looking for the angles on THK.
And this is required. They need to be running a Widowmaker versus the Fire here, otherwise they will be abused. And for Xavier, it's a case where you just have no real other choice. If you play any sort of 3-3 here, you're probably just going to lose straight up. So Xavier have to have an extremely good defense. No mistakes allowed, because one tick is all Greenleaves need.
Oh, they find a headshot onto THK. Like I said, so many members pressuring him, and finally goes down. Now Queen unable to escape, and that's so much spam damage on him. They were already angling towards the point. Now, as they make their final approach, they've already found 2 kills on the way. I unfortunately do not see Xavier lasting much longer. The Immortality Field gets picked off. Mushroom eats a hack. They are struggling to keep him alive, and they can't keep him on the point. That is clean for Greenleaves.
And I think at every stage so far, again, well, probably being the outlier on Ilios, but for all other stages we have, you have Ruins on Ilios, you have the attacking phase and the defending phase for both of Paris. On all 3 of those lineups, those matchups have all been positive for the side of Greenleaves. And for Xavier, I would argue it's all been negative. You have that last defense from Xavier, which is slightly redeemable. However, you see the Hanzo come out from Greenleaves as well. Perfect counter to a bunker setup, not just in the fact that you have Fire at Hanzo for spam damage, breaking Orisa shields, but the fact that if you're running a double main tank and Winston's going to jump in, one of the best heroes to deal with a diving member like that is a Hanzo that puts in 6 storm arrows as soon as you decide to leap in. That just melts your main tank. That's why Queen just got destroyed. And for map selection, I mean, 2-0 already. Numbani is coming up next. I'm looking at a 3-0, to be very fair.
Yeah, I mean, that's the expectation at this point. I also want to just compliment the overall approach there for Greenleaves. It's pressure, right? Like, there are so many avenues through which you can get the opening pick. And when you only need to get a third, you only need the 1 opening pick, especially when, as you sort of noted partway through the fight there's no res available for Xavier. They can't equalize that. They just have to start counter-fragging. When the first person that goes down is your Widowmaker, you lose most of your opportunity to get those counter-frags, at least those sort of quick picks like what you got out of the Hanzo there. So it just falls apart so quickly. It ended up being overly brittle in light of what Greenleaves were also running.
It was a very, I think brittle's the right word here, because you look at how that bunker was set up. It's 2 reasonably weak members in terms of hero selections, and then paired up with the Orisa as well. Yeah, you have the Immortality Field, but once that's gone, and that's easy to take away if you have a Fire and a Hanzo, that's a couple of shots and that Immortality is gone. So you have members that are very easy to pick out. You have some big flanking, big poke damage coming through from Greenleaves as well. You are very reliant, if you are Xavier, on your Sombra and your Winston getting onto soft members as the rotation is coming through to try and equalize, and then have your Widowmakers all do some real damage. However, Widowmaker down first. THK died super early, and that is going to result in a super early loss on Paris. Preview this one already, and Numbani's coming up next, but before that, going to go to a bit of a break, so hold on to your seats. We'll be right back after this.